Hello, my name is Lucy Ortiz. I am an environmental studies major at the University of Alberta, working through the CSL program with the Regional Environmental Action Committee. This interview is the first part of the plastic straw manufacturing project. We are currently studying and learning more about local perspectives on plastics and our recycling program in these communities. Through this interview, we hope to learn and educate people on all the aspects of plastics. Today, it is my pleasure to interview someone who just knows so much about policy development and just has so much experience in this topic. And that person is Tom Moore. We wanted to thank him for agreeing to do this interview. He is the commission manager at the West Loch Regional Waste Management Commission in Alberta. He has over 14 years of experience in policy development and 9 years of experience in the waste management field. Thank you, Tom, for agreeing to do this interview, and we'll just get started. So first question is, what exactly is your project and how did you get started in it?
My project depends on which one you're talking about. I manage a small rural remote waste facility.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use the term landfill hardly at all anymore because most landfills, it's actually a landfill as a component of what we do. And I'm very fortunate in that my board is very supportive of looking at ways to divert and or recycle waste to our best of our ability. I think the one that you're referring to is our plastic recycling program.
Yes.
And we, 3 years ago, we're looking at ways because a big share of waste that goes into landfills is plastic. After China shut down the the export of plastics to China, we had to look at alternatives, and it was costing us a lot of money to, even if we did bale it and ship it off, it was costing us a lot of money to get rid of those plastics. So I started working with a gentleman by the name of Chris Nelson of DBS Environmental down in Lethbridge, and he had found at that time one outlet that wanted the basically the unusable plastics, the 1s to 7s that a lot of people are not wanting, the plastics that can be a little bit dirty. And he asked me if I'd be interested in maybe being kind of because he's in Lethbridge, being a receiver of this plastic and shipping it to him, and then he was grinding them and whatnot. In the discussions, he found a used grinder that he got, and I was able to obtain that, buy that with a sorting table and that kind of stuff relatively inexpensively. We had to remodel it and re-upgrade it to bring it to current safety standards, and we started grinding plastic on site. And what was interesting is once we started, we actually found an outfit in Legal, which is only 30 minutes away from our facility. And he's actually been taking all my plastics. And we're also importing plastics from other municipalities. So it was just kind of a fluke as far as how we got started. And so we are really pushing hard now to get people educated in the importance of sorting their plastic and bringing it into us and grinding it. It got to where our grinder that we originally obtained wasn't big enough. And
Mm-hmm.
literally last week we put a bigger unit in. We haven't hardly ran it yet. It'll do about 5 times the volume that the other one did. And again, it was a used one that we found and we were able to trade. I had to do some upgrading of our power supply so that we had high enough voltage. But it's up and ready to go. I just have to go and do some final checks on the safety side of stuff, and it's ready to go. So what we do is we take plastics, the 1s to 7s, not film, and that's only because our machine isn't made for film. We grind it into smaller particles, like 1 inch by 1 inch or smaller pieces of plastic. It's mixed, goes into a bag, and then the gentleman in Legal takes it. Tony then takes that plastic and he mixes it with some other plastic from oil jugs and stuff because it's a higher grade plastic, and makes boards with it, and 2x6s, 4x4s, 1x4s, those kind of things. And then it's used for different materials. We'll send you some pictures of planters that he's made, as well as they've used it for decking and that kind of thing. There's some limitations as to what can be used of it, but the technology is getting better and better than what used to happen years ago. And they're finding that they need these harder plastics like the HDPEs mixed in order to make a better product. We also have one new one in Morinville. It looks like it'll be taking Severa Plastics. And then we also have an outlet in Lethbridge. If these two people up in our end of the world here can't take it, we can send it to Lethbridge. So there is a market. It has to be pretty clean. We hand sort all our plastic, so it's relatively clean. It's not full of other contaminants and stuff. Little food and stuff's not a big deal. It's more the papers and the certain types of plastics,
Okay.
PVC, that kind of stuff that can't go in. So we hand sort all of our plastics. So it is labor intensive. We lose money in it, but where we gain is we're not filling up our landfill. And landfill space costs about between $100 and $120 a cubic meter. And 1 ton of plastic not baled, and I say that because one baled plastic would take up a meter, but and that's still only half a ton. But anyway, unbaled plastic takes anywhere from 3 to 5 cubic meters of landfill space, depending on the type of plastic and that kind of stuff. So that's where our savings is. We've had to add on to our building in order to accommodate all this. And everything I have is used. So I find stuff that's been in the back 40 or in a metal pile somewhere or something, and bring it in. I completely renovate it, bring it up to code, and modify it in order to meet the requirements. And so I take recycling to a whole different level, in that every piece of equipment that we have in our recycle center, is there any exceptions? No. Everything is been I've bought used, replenished. That includes our cardboard baler, the conveyor, our skids, or I mean our forklift that we have in there, the sorting table. Everything we have in there is all stuff that we've reconditioned and brought up to code and using. Couldn't do it otherwise. It's very expensive to buy new equipment. So anyway, that's how we got started.
That's awesome. So in your process, the one that you're directly a part of, do you notice any fumes when you're working with the plastic?
Films? Oh yeah, we get a little film, and a little bit's okay. The challenge is that grinders for film are different than those for hard plastics, and so the film will get wrapped around the grinder like what we have. And it also, like, we did run some through this newer machine here the other day, and it just turned it into dust, and it completely filled our building clear full of a plastic film dust, which isn't safe. So it's a matter of having the right equipment. Yeah, there's a lot of film. People are trying, and I understand that. The struggle is that film is just not that easy to handle. Plus, plastic bags are not all equal. You may have fiberglass in them. You may have a whole lot of other things. You might have PVC. You may have other things involved that can't be recycled and are actually dangerous to try to grind and to process. So that's one of the struggles. The people that want plastic film want perfectly clear and clean film. They can't be colored. It can't be anything like that. So it's a real struggle to get rid of. So unfortunately, we have to landfill that. But when you look at tonnage and whatnot, the hard plastics are what take up more of our space. The struggle with film is that it blows all over the place, and we're constantly having to pick it up, and it's just looks nasty around landfills. Birds get entangled in it, those kind of things. That's a bigger challenge with the film.
And on that topic, what are your opinions on microplastics?
Well, um, I mean, there's a place for it. I'm not going to say we need to go completely without plastics. But I think we can go back. Back in my day, we used paper bags when I went to the grocery store. And at least when it gets wet, it does degrade relatively fast. Struggle with landfilling anymore, though. Everybody doesn't understand that it's anaerobic, means without air. So what that means is things don't break down in landfills very fast. I don't care if it's paper or anything like that. We have to seal it off, and so that's anaerobic. Um, But when I look at how nasty around the landfills look and that kind of thing, yeah, we can get rid of plastic bags, film. I mean, the larger bags actually kind of help keep that stuff from blowing around, like your big,
Yeah.
bin bags. But your grocery bags, all that kind of stuff, bread bags, all that. I also think we need to go back to some of the old packaging, and instead of using plastic for everything, use cardboard or some of the other stuff that's easier to recycle. But there is a place for it. And, fortunately here in Alberta, we found a way to handle it. And the biggest struggle I have found is I did bring some plastic in from the big city, and it was contaminated really bad. It had metals in it and stuff like that, and went through teeth on my grinder. A set of teeth is about $3,500. So my first year, we spent over $12,000 on blades just because of a piece of metal. Even though we try hard to sort it, but somebody will throw a piece of metal in a plastic container or whatnot, and you don't see it. So, um, so I to say to completely ban, when they say completely ban plastics, what are they going to do with IV tubes? What are they going to do with IV bags? um there's certain things, how, like a set of headphones, do you want to have back to metal to where they're really heavy on your head? There's going to be some areas that will have to be reevaluated. What I think they need to do on plastics is, for example, I don't know if a lot of people are aware of, like, computer components and those things. We don't know what plastics are in those. We have, in fact, a lot of them, they use PVC and they use fiberglass in them, so you can't grind them. We tried grinding some and it was just nasty. So is make some regulations to where only things can only be made out of certain kind of plastics that we can process safely and easily in Canada in general. Um, and that's some of the things that I think need to be done in order to make it a lot easier.
Yeah, and you're talking a lot about classifications. How do you feel about the plastic recycling logos that have like the number inside it? Do you think those are generally helpful to the public?
No, they're not accurate either. They give the impression that all plastics are recyclable. All plastics aren't
Yeah.
recyclable. I like the fact that they have 1s to 7s, but what the way that it's my understanding, and I'm not a packager, I'm not by any means, so, but it's my understanding that if it has like say a number 5 in it over a certain percentage, they could put that stamp on there. But yet it might have some fiberglass or some other thing in it, and so that's where it's not completely accurate. It is nice, but most people don't look at that number anyway. Oh, I don't. I thought I had a water bottle here, but I don't. They don't all have the numbers. But if they were completely accurate and true, yeah, that would be that. That is a good thing.
Thank you for that answer. That's actually really good because I know that sometimes I'll try to recycle something,
Hmm.
and I think it was online that I found that numbers like 1 through 3, I think, and then like 5 are the most recyclable,
Right.
but you never really know, as you
There are a
say.
lot of facilities that will only take like number 2s or number 1s, and that's why what we're doing, we're taking them all and mixing them together so we don't have to sort it all individually. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, it takes, because that takes a lot of staff, it takes a lot of time in order to sort that individually out of your mixed plastics.
Yeah. Well, going back to your project, what are the main challenges that you found when you were starting, since there was probably no real capital to start with?
We had basically zero capital. I was fortunate, I did have a few dollars from one project that was left over. And I guess one fortunate is I have the ability, I guess, to look outside the box and figure out how to make things work. And not a lot of people could do what I do. I'm not bragging. It's just that I'm an old farm boy and I learned a lot of things on how to kind of problem solve and sort things out. Some of the challenge where I've already mentioned is plastic coming in that's got a lot of metal and stuff like that in it. And so it causes some issues there. And like I said, we spent a lot of dollars. Last year, I lost about $10,000 on that project, and it's mainly because of the blades. We had to replace blades. They're not easy to get. You have to special order them out of the States. So, like I've got a set of ordered for this new one right now, and they're telling me it'd be 6 weeks before they get here. So, it's not like you can just go to the local knife shop and buy these blades. They're very special blades. So that was one of the struggles. Another is just finding, well, it's the same thing, finding clean plastics and finding municipalities that are going to send me good, clean stuff. And I've kind of done that. I've got 2 or 3 other municipalities that bring me their stuff, and I know it's pretty clean. And so we've had a whole lot less issues. Funding and making sure it operates has been a big struggle. It is labor intensive. And nobody wants to stand there for 8 hours straight bending over a table hand sorting stuff, so it's a big issue there. So getting labor to do it and keep your costs down. My goal is to at least break even. I don't expect to make money, but if I can break even, I'll be happy with that. I've done a lot of painstaking designs, like to keep our energy down. We've gone with special voltage and that kind of stuff. Everything we've done, like all our lights are all LED. Everything we've done was try to keep the costs down for operation. And so, it's mainly just been educating the people about, what a lot of film, a lot of stuff that have fiberglass in them. And part of that is public just don't know what's in a bag or what's in a piece of plastic. Then on the other side too is a lot of people, they're so used to throwing in, like, say, plastic lawn chairs, for example. In fact, I was around scale earlier today, and a gentleman had those, and I says, "You can throw them in the recycle building." He says, "Oh, you can recycle that?" "Yeah, we can recycle that. We have to cut it down with a saw, but we can do that and keep it out of the landfill." So just mainly education. The biggest struggle is the commercial side. Residents do a fairly good, we've been harping on the residents. But the commercial side is the biggest struggle. And that's been kind of where I'm starting to focus on now, is to try to get the commercial to understand, what, we can reduce what's going in landfills and recycle a lot of this plastic that you guys are throwing in the garbage. It's amazing when you see a commercial truck come in, it's probably 75% recycled material, cardboard, plastic, compostable materials, that kind of stuff, because they just throw everything in that 6-yard bin out back, right? So those are the main
Yeah, and
things
that's a
we
big
run into.
problem too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people are still confused about the compostable items, and they assume they can throw it in the recycling as well. So I
Right.
agree, education is a big part.
Yeah,
Um,
we
do
on
you-
site here, we actually have special bins and ask the people to sort it. We don't we do receive from one little municipality their blue bags, and that is a struggle there. We'll have compost in there, we'll have glass in there, certain things that we just can't handle, and it's just that they think that they're doing it right, and it can be a real struggle.
yeah, for sure. Do you think the marketing then, like marketing challenges, are also a big part
Oh,
of?
they're very hard. And part of that's got to do with, in the past, yes, there was recycled plastic. It was very weak. And part of that, they didn't understand what percentage of high density they needed in and those kind of things. They now have technology to where they can put, like, metal pipes or rods in the middle, so that, like, post signs can, they won't bend over, because plastic, when it gets heat against it, it'll bend towards the sun. It can't have any structural, it doesn't have any structural integrity. So if you're going to build a deck, you still have to put the wood underneath and then put the deck boards on top. So that's a struggle. But fortunately, I don't have to worry about that. I just produce the product for these guys that are making these boards for the marketing. But yes, that is an issue. And but again, a lot of it's got to do with past history where it didn't work very well, and so they kind of keep that going. There's been studies in the last couple of years. For example, one gentleman, one of them down Lethbridge, that produces. He'll make like big 6x6 posts and stuff, and these game fences that go. There's a lot of them in BC. And so they were wanting to maybe use these plastic posts, and he found out that it has actually, where a wood post would burn in a forest fire or whatever, the plastic posts wouldn't. They might singe, but they wouldn't burn. They also were stronger. So they are finding some markets relative that actually are very specific to the plastics. Um, Another example is down in some of the southern states, they are now not allowing wood beams on the inside of walls and stuff for commercial because of the dry rot and stuff from the high moisture content. So they've got metal beams, but when you have a metal beam, putting drywall screws and stuff in there is not very secure. So he's making little 1.5 by 1.5 strips that go on the back so that the screws will go right in and be tight. And he's found a market for a lot of the recycled plastic for that. So it's a matter of finding a market or a niche that it doesn't matter. Another problem is that certain types of recycle or plastics have to have all virgin plastic. Food containment, for example, they won't allow recycled plastic in it. They're starting to get better. They're starting to find ways to clean it and be able to use it. But like your Ziploc bags and those kind of things, those they can't use recycled plastic. We're getting more and more that like garbage bags, that kind of stuff that are being used. So it's just a matter of doing the research and finding funding. That's a big thing. Like a lot of this research is being paid for by these guys that are they're trying to find ways to do it, and there's no funding out there for some of this research. And that would be really great if there would be some funding available. All the funding out there right now is for new technology, not to help the current technology, and I think that's part of an issue there.
Yeah, I had never thought of that. That's for sure a big
Yep.
problem. Hopefully it gets addressed soon as well.
I-
So when you're changing the plastics, do you see smoke when you're working with it or fume that could affect people's respiratory health?
We have, like when we're grinding the plastic, we have a ventilation system or a vacuum system to collect the dust and whatnot. We also, in the building, we actually put an air exchange system in. No, we've not had any issues. We do provide masks and stuff for the staff. Hearing protection is most important. But no, there's not actually our dust. If you go in there, there's very little dust on any of the equipment or anything like that. We capture it as best we can. And I actually went away. I used to, in my old grinder, I had a blower to blow it into the bags, and that created dust, more dust. This one, I actually put it's actually a grain auger. It's a small one, and doing that, and we're hardly got any dust coming off of it. So sometimes it's a matter of just doing some research and finding out what's being done out there. But I still have. I just went to auto shop and bought one of those, or a wood shop and bought one of those vac systems like for saws and that kind of stuff, and put a collection at the top so that the dust that's coming off the grinder itself is captured, and then we're capturing that and then disposing of the dust that comes out of that. So there is a little bit, I'm not going to lie, but no, the staff, and then if it gets too bad, they just open doors or whatever to get some flow. But really, we see very little. Whenever we've had tours, I don't have to have my staff go clean anything because it's clean. It's just the way it is. When we started this unit, though, that's where we found out we couldn't use plastic film because there was that dust film all over the place. So we can't use film on this. We were trying to figure out a way, but that's why we do trials and errors to try to see what we can and can't use, because safety is number one. Like when I had the new building built, I had special ventilation systems put in just to accommodate that accordingly.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you for that answer. What is, in your perspective, what is the most important public message to get out of this?
For the public, I used to do a radio thing on the radio every week,
Oh, that's awesome.
and well, yeah, but the local station got sold to a conglomerate, so we no longer do it. But what I found was just letting people know what they can and can't do. Let them know that we have plastics. If you're not sure if we can handle it, just ask the staff, ask around. Don't assume that we can't do it, or don't assume that we can do it. Like the other day, I was running when I got this grinder first going. I kind of do the first runs with it. We dumped our bin of plastic and it had a lot of tin cans in it. So it's just a matter of educating the people. You know what? We can't do this because blades are $3,000, $3,500 a set. Let's try to minimize that. It's just a matter of, And I believe in the one-on-one type of approach, talking to the individuals. You could put out flyers, you can do advertising, you can do all that. That's why I love the radio station, because I would receive information on Facebook or whatever from people, and I could discuss that. Or maybe the radio station DJ would have some questions that people asked him. But one-on-one, and it's, yes, it's environmentally the right thing to do, but we have to educate on the economic side. Let people know, and I can rattle numbers off, but it's different at each site. Each facility is different. My numbers aren't going to be the same as, say, Brooks, Alberta. They're all going to be different. But once people understand that, we're trying to reduce costs long term, and that's another challenge we have, is politicians are only in for 4 years. I'm in this in trying to plan things for 20 years down the road, and sometimes that's a real struggle for them to understand that they got to make an investment now to save on down the line. That was the biggest struggle with what we're doing. But I was able to put together a business plan and show them that, what, in 10 years we're going to save this much airspace in our landfill, and then they were able to say, oh, okay, let's do this. But just education. Let them know that we there is alternatives here in Alberta. I don't care what's like the BC stuff. That was bad, but part of that had to do with, yes, they have a good recycling program, all geared toward the public, not so much towards the commercial. And the commercial side's where they were running into troubles. And we just have to educate everybody, not just you at your house, but the business down the street from you, on ways that we can do that. In fact, I just had a meeting this morning. We are looking at doing a partnership for a composting facility on our property here.
Great.
And we're talking about food waste, and I says, you know what, guys, we can, the residents, they'll be on board. It's easy to get them on, but you need to go and talk to the Sobeys, the Safeways, those places, because when you see their bins coming into our landfills, a lot of it's food waste, a lot of it's stuff that could be done with another way. And so, so we have to work on the commercial side as hard, if not harder. And I do that every time I go into a business. I'll try to strike up a conversation with the owners or the managers and say, hey, what are you doing with your cardboard, for example, or what are you doing? Even just one item. We don't have to focus on a whole bunch of items, just one item. Like one guy told me 80% of his garbage was cardboard. I says, and it's going to landfill. Yep. I says, well, why don't you just bring me the cardboard separately and you get rid of your bin? Because most likely it's 2 or 3 bags a week of garbage, and save him hundreds of dollars a month on bin tippage. So so we just need to just get out there and talk to people. Stick your hand out, have a cup of coffee, whatever, with the public, and just let them know, what, we're unique. Not a lot of small municipalities are doing what we're doing, but more and more are. We've got, actually, I got a call last week from the gentleman down in Vulcan area that's wanting to know what we did with our old grinder, because he's wanting to start doing what we're doing. So, I told him where it was. So we're getting more and more, because trucking costs are extraordinary to get rid of haul plastic. For example, we used to only ship off about 3 or 4 ton of plastic a year. And it was costing me $300 to $400 for trucking for the trailer, because it wasn't baled or anything, it was just loose. Plus, it was costing us $120 a ton to get rid of it. So we were spending a lot of dollars, and the trucking costs are just astronomical. So by even just baling it, we can reduce those costs, because we can get more in a truck. Those are all things that it's amazing how many people come in and say, well, all the money you're making off of recycle. Well, we're not. Last year, I actually lost about $15,000 on the recycle side, but the savings was in the landfill.
Yeah.
This year I actually might make a few dollars, because now that we got the issues with the grinder fixed and we figured all that out, market's up a little bit on cardboard, so I might actually make a few dollars. So, again, just getting the education out to the public and let them know that, it's we're doing the best we can, and But just because they aren't doing it now, 2 years from now, they might be doing something. So, and that's been part of my goal right now, is to try to work with other municipalities and small landfills and ways to do it, to recycle and divert waste out of their landfills.
Yeah, and I mean, it's great that more municipalities want to get into the project, but when did you realize that we needed to transfer the way that we manage plastics?
We do need to, and the first one is buying products that maybe don't have too much plastics. Like, for example, I did notice, like, for example, HP, their ink cartridges used to be in plastic or styrofoam. Now they're all in cardboard. So they're going in the right direction. So buy products that are in recyclable, easier to hand manage products. Buy, items that, instead of going and buy one that's in all plastic, find something that's in a container that's going to be, get the reusable garbage, or grocery bags. And I'm probably the worst for that. To be honest with you, I'll go in to get groceries for home and I forget to grab my bags. They're in my truck, but I'll forget to grab them. And so, but I have cats, so we're able to accommodate it accordingly. But still, just, yeah. And minimize. There are municipalities now that, like, for example, Wood Buffalo has banned all plastic bags,
Mhm.
but you still go in their landfill. There's still plastic bags blowing around because they buy stuff at other cities and that kind of stuff. So it's not completely 100% proof. Get more and more. I'm noticing, like, here lately, a lot of takeout anymore is in paper bags, not in the plastic bags, and that's
Yeah.
great. I went to a hardware store the other day and they gave me a paper bag. So, the businesses are kind of moving over to that direction.
Mhm.
I don't think, to me, that regulation isn't the way to go. Let's just do a little PR and a little education, and I think the businesses will go the right direction.
Yeah, that's awesome. When did you realize that we needed to change the way that we use plastics?
Longer ago than you are old. Um,
Long
I've
time.
known it. Yeah, I've known it for a long time, and um, I have friends back home that have been in the garbage business, and I would help them do different things when they were on their truck runs and stuff. And when you see all the plastic going into the landfill, I knew then there was an issue. When I ran the Slave Lake fire, or Slave Lake landfill, I was always like, okay, what can we do with this plastic? I brought in more bins for people to do the plastic. We shipped off a lot, but we still got a lot going in landfill. I still have a lot going in landfill. I'm not going to say we're catching it all, but it's slowly less and less, and we're getting more and more that we're recycling in. But I've known it for years. When they went from paper bags to plastic bags, saying it was going to reduce the waste and all that kind of stuff, I almost back then said, you know what, this isn't going to work, because plastic it's not biodegradable.
It's forever, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the challenge that you see facing forward or moving forward, per se?
The biggest challenge is getting like I said earlier, is getting the federal government and whatnot to put some limits on what certain items could be made out of, instead of, like, almost all appliances or all plastic, like computers, VCRs, all that comes from overseas. There's no regulations saying, okay, this is the kind of plastics you can make. They can just make out whatever they want. So the challenge is going to be, how do we regulate that? How do we make sure that the computer that we buy is all made out of recyclable plastic, or the plastic components? Um, and the challenge there too is, they say, well, it is made of recycle. Well, yeah, if each plastic was separated, those plastics are recyclable. Well, when you combine them together, they're no longer recyclable. The chemistry is different at that point. So there's some stuff. The challenges are at that point. Other challenges, as I said earlier, is research. Finding funding for research. How can we research different ways to use plastic, recycled plastic, and not just recycled plastic, a lot of other products. There's cardboard. A lot of that ends up going down to the States. Or is there a way to look at that, and so we're not doing all the the carbon imprint of sending that cardboard clear down the states. Is there something that can be done here in Alberta, for example? Look at those kind of things, and that's a real struggle. Trucking costs are atrocious. It's just unreal what we have to pay to get rid of some of this stuff, and that's why a lot of things aren't recycled. Is the trucking costs are ridiculous. Nothing against the trucking industry. They've got to make a dollar, but when you're shipping hundreds of kilometers, thousands of kilometers to get to a processor, that costs a lot of money.
And that's fair. How do you personally, with your project, want to move forward? Do you want to increase the, I guess, recycling to cardboard, as you mentioned earlier, or to food?
Well, right now I just want to get this facility back to running again.
Mhm.
I don't have any further plans right now on the plastic side, other than finding resources to bring plastic into me that's clean and easy to manage. Um, uh, right now, with this new grinder, once we get it going, the plastic have on site right now, we'll probably go through it relatively fast, and so our suppliers right now won't be able to keep up. Um, so just a matter of finding the right resources for this plastic that we need, keeping it going. Staffing is a big issue. But long term, like I say, the next one is our compost, and we're doing looks like it's not completely firmed up yet, but probably a partnership to bring increased increased composting, which will include food. I do compost, but I can only do grass and leaves. This facility will have the ability to do food waste. So, like the grocery stores, that kind of stuff, then now we can send them over there instead of to the landfill. So, those are things. I'm doing research. I got one other research project right now dealing with what's called leachate, which is the water that goes through garbage. We have to catch that. We have to deep well inject it right now. We got research right now on site on how to manage that, so it'll help reduce costs and maybe reuse that water for other things. And also, I'm working with university right now with doing some research on styrofoam and ways that we might be able to treat that. Because styrofoam is another big one. We can't grind it, and we can't do anything with styrofoam right now. There is facilities that can, but it just cost prohibitive. So, those are areas that, but I kind of look at it different ways than most people. Like styrofoam, we're not looking at baling it and shipping it for recycling. We're looking at other aspects of how we can break it down and maybe turn it into something else. So those are the plastic grinding now is we've kind of got it up and going, and we got it, once I get some of the problem solving done, I think we're where we want to be. We're not big enough to go any bigger. And cover those costs, but we can meet our needs plus those municipalities surrounding us needs on that aspect, and that's kind of my goal, and helping others kind of do the same thing.
That's awesome. Well, those are all the questions that I have. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or anything else that you'd want to?
No, I just appreciate you acknowledging that we are working at ways to try to recycle on plastics, is what this interview is, but other things. And getting the word out, that recycling is, those of us in the landfill world, is important to us, but it may not look like it when they see all this waste going into the landfills, but we actually are trying hard to divert as much as we can away from the landfills, and it's a lot of work. It's hard work, a lot of hit and miss. What this work, that works, this doesn't work,
Mhm.
that doesn't work. Some costly mistakes, but we are working, and we work together clear across Alberta. I'm with Alberta Care, and it's got 130 small municipalities that are on board. And so, we are not municipalities, but waste facilities. And so we're always talking about different ways and different things on how we can reduce the waste and be more efficient at what we do.
Okay, well, Tom, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Um, Honestly, I learned a lot. I'm on my
Awesome.
second year at university, and I feel like obviously I still have a lot to learn, but this was a great start. Thank you so much for your time.
You're always welcome to call and come, and we'll take you through a tour for our small facility here.
That would be wonderful. I would love
All
that.
right.
Thank you for taking the time to do this interview, and thank you, the viewer, for taking the time to watch this interview. We hope that you learned a lot. I'm sure that I did. And we continue to film more interviews for this plastic straw manufacturing project. We're trying to learn as much as we can about plastics, and please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We have more resources down below where you can learn more about our purpose. Thank you again for watching, and take care.